Hey everybody, I'm Clifford Stummy, the Pop Song Professor, and welcome to my channel where we make English class awesome by talking about song lyrics. Today we are talking about the next 21 Pilots album and my theory about what it's going to be about. So if you've heard me talk about Trench before, or maybe read my article that I wrote for Relevant Magazine about it, you know that from what I've analyzed and seen and from what I've heard Tyler Joseph say, Trench is an album that is technically godless. It tells a story, but there's no Christ figure, there's no God figure, and this is a little bit surprising when we know that Tyler Joseph is himself a Christian. Listen to this quote from him. "The process I've been on for this record is the closest I've been to entertaining a world where there isn't a God. I still believe in God, I still want to call myself a Christian because I am a Christian." And from another quote by him, we know that this album is about the main character, Tyler basically, trying to go somewhere but keeping on being dragged back into Dima. And we hear these lines from Leave the City that describes him being in Dima. He says, "I'm tired of tending this fire. They know that it's almost over. It's only time before they show me why no one ever comes back with details from beyond." And this seems to be a reverie on death and the afterlife, and it's very depressing. It's almost like they're saying that, Tyler's saying like, yeah, I'm worried that there's nothing after this life, and it's the perfect picture of how this album really leaves God out of the mythos of this world. And in a lot of stories out there, there's this mythos or this big picture archetypal story that we see repeated in stories over and over again, where there is, there's an enemy, the bad guy, there's the main character, and then there's a guide or somebody who sacrifices themselves to help the character get to where they're going and to defeat the bad guy. And that character in Christian mythos is called the Christ figure, sometimes it's called the Savior figure, sometimes it's just called the guide or the mentor. Not all the time does that person die, but oftentimes they do give up something to help this person be able to survive. And it's like one of the most common stories you ever hear, like Obi-Wan Kenobi sacrificing himself in the fourth Star Wars movie so that Luke can escape, or Gandalf sacrificing himself to go fight the Balrog while the other characters go and make their escape, or Aslan in the Chronicles of Narnia letting himself be killed to cover up the debt that Edmund owed the White Witch. It's a story that we see again and again and again, and it's one of the most powerful because it involves somebody who doesn't have to sacrifice themselves to help somebody else who may or may not deserve it. So it was really surprising to me when we got to Trench and all of a sudden Tyler Joseph's creating this world, telling the story. It's not quite mythological in a fantasy way, but it is, a made-up world, and we're like, where's the Christ figure? Where is, somebody that kind of fits in with his religion that would come and speak some sort of hope or positivity into this really dark world where even though there are the banditos to help out Tyler Joseph's character, he still keeps getting dragged back again and again and again by the bishops of Dima. Even when he's in the banditos camp, he can't escape the bishops. And even when he's wearing the yellow might scare the bishops a little bit, but it's not enough to really get rid of them. And I think that's why he sounds so depressed at the end of Leave the City, because there is this feeling that no matter how many times he tries, he's stuck in Dima until the end of his life, and then who knows what happens. That's the basic gist of it. But at the same time, 21 Pilots band members still are Christians, at least, to the best of our knowledge. Tyler claims in this interview from approximately a little bit less than a year ago. And if you go to a 21 Pilots concert, which I did just recently, which was so fun, then you know that, they play Leave the City, but at the end of the concert, they always play Trees. And what is Trees about? It's about somebody that they're calling for to come out of the trees. And it is the most common, the easiest, the most fitting explanation is that this person is God. So while they have this thing they're struggling with, God still plays a part in their concerts. And if we know anything about 21 Pilots, it's that their concerts are more important than the music they record. And by the end of Trees, they're saying hello a lot, as if though they've seen this person, as if though they've met this person, and that's the ending climax, the hopeful, positive moment at the end of every 21 Pilots concert. Okay, so that's where Trench left us. That's Tyler and Joseph's faith, and that's this presence of somebody else. Well, somebody has been mentioned in other interviews with NME by Tyler Joseph as being a central figure on the next album. So listen to this. He says, "There's definitely an end game," in reference to Trench. There's a story. So basically, he's implying that the story doesn't end end with Trench. I think I was very specific that there's a reason why the record ends with the song Leave the City. It's ending on a depressing note, and the song itself is kind of a cliffhanger, meaning it's not all there is, there's something more. I mean, the whole thing was it's setting up for what's next. I mean, that says something. And it'd be silly to not at least resolve what we've already started. And by resolve, usually that means answering questions such as, you know, what comes next in life? What's after death? Can I escape? Those are the questions we were left with. And so he's saying we want to resolve this, and hopefully the answer's not going to be, yep, we're all screwed. I guess we should all just die, because that doesn't sound like a very 21 Pilots thing to say to me. You know? And he continues on, there's a character that hasn't been talked about on any record yet that plays a huge role in the narrative that obviously will need to be talked about, and it's probably where we're going next. So it's not going to be a rehashing of all the same themes, but it's going to recall all that and introduce a new character, a new direction. Well, the old direction was pretty negative and sad, so I'm assuming that the new direction has to either be just kind of staying there, like not getting worse, or getting better. Probably getting better, I don't know, maybe? Yeah, no, I actually know. The opposite of getting worse is getting better. So things are gonna get more positive on the next album, it sounds like, if they continue with the vision they have for it right now. And he uses the word narrative, which is a very, like, I don't know, a scientific or an analytical approach to talking about a story. And he wants to introduce a character into that story who hasn't been talked about. Now, this character can do one of three things. This character can make things worse, be some sort of a super bishop, something like that, but it's not a bishop, it's not Blurryface, so it's either got to be worse than those or not as bad as those, and if it's not as bad as those, who cares? This person could be kind of middle of the road, just not really doing anything, more of an observer or very neutral, but that doesn't really connote a new direction, so it stands to reason that this person is going to be a positive influence in the world of Trench. And what is Tyler trying to do in this world? He's trying to find a place, so either this person is going to help, I think, Tyler find that place, or take him in a new, better direction that Tyler doesn't realize. In any case, this person sounds like a guide, which sounds like a mentor, and sounds like somebody who fulfills perhaps that role as a Christ figure, perhaps. And it's not going to be friends, families, or fans, because those people have all been briefly mentioned or heavily mentioned on Trench, and it didn't solve the problem. He still got stolen out of the Banditos camp, even though family, friends, and fans are all ostensibly, you know, represented in the Bandito army. So it has to be somebody else, and the only character in 21 Pilots mythos that hasn't been mentioned yet is sort of like a Christ figure. The one thing that goes against this is there's a character that hasn't been talked about on any record yet, which could be his way of saying that, you know, this isn't a stand-in for God or anything, but it could be that he was differentiating the metaphorical character from the songs that have actually been about his relationship to God. So I think that my theory still stands in spite of that. So all that being said, I'm gonna theorize that this next album, in non-preachy ways, because that being preachy is not the 21 Pilots way, brings in a character who helps take Tyler to a better place. And because this journey is a very spiritual one for him, it has to do with, you know, suicidal thoughts, but it also has to do with spiritual darkness. I think that this character is going to be something of a representation of a spiritual presence. At the heart of my theory, I think that this character is going to represent some sort of a Christ figure, and from, you know, a Judeo-Christian perspective, but at the very least, this person is going to be a huge positive influence on the narrative. And I can't wait to see how that turns out. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this theory, what your thoughts are on this and on Tyler's quotes at the end of Trench and all that good stuff. Thanks so much for watching. You can check out my theories, you know, my explanations on Dima, this Dima for Dummies Part 1. And then here's a theory that one of you guys helped me out with, talking about, you know, where the images of the Skeleton Click logos came from. And that's actually really cool to check out. So thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you next time.